Good evening, everyone, and I want to welcome you to Mayor Hancock's virtual cabinet in the community for Council District 8. So another month has gone by, and we are back in full effect to make sure that we get you the answers and the information about the respective district that you are living in. So with that, I want to welcome everyone to this cabinet in the community. And before I get started, you know, there are always some housekeeping items that I have to tell you about because I know you want to join the conversation. So first, if you need tonight's program translated into Spanish, please do this. I want you to go to Channel 8, or you can also find those services on the mayor's Facebook page or on the City of Denver's Facebook page. So please, those services will be there. You can also access the translator right here on Zoom by clicking on the globe at the bottom of your screen. And if you're saying, well, globe, where's my globe? It's coming up. So do not fret. I want to make sure you know that that service is there and it is turned on. Once we click on the globe, that would be you. You pick the language of your choice. And the only language requested for tonight for this particular CIC was Spanish. So speaking of translator, your translator tonight will be Valentina, and she does a wonderful job. So she will be translating for you. And with that, let me go ahead and introduce Valentina so she can translate what I've said so far.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas noches a todas. Un gusto estar aquí con ustedes. Vamos a empezar la sesión de hoy, la comunidad en el gabinete en la comunidad. Si ustedes requieren de interpretación, por favor encuentren estos servicios en el canal 8, en la página del alcalde en Facebook o a través de Zoom, a través del botón que que parece un planeta en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Este botón estará actualizado en un par de minutitos. Ahí verán los servicios de interpretación para español específicamente. Muchas gracias.
Oh, that was beautiful, Valentina, as usual. Now, if you need access to American Sign Language, you can access that service via the mayor's Facebook page or on Channel 8. And the same for automatic speech recognition. Just go to the bottom of your Zoom screen. You see that globe piece there? That also will help you get what you need. So you will hear from agency heads tonight, as well as the mayor and your council member, Councilman Herndon. You want to drop your questions, and you'll hear me say this throughout the evening. After each presenter, we will have time for you to basically ask questions of that respective presenter. So Britta Fisher, who is over HOST, which is the Housing and Stability Office for the City of Denver. You'll want to go ahead and take care of that by dropping those questions in the Zoom. If you're saying, well, I'm not watching on Zoom, that's okay too. We have got people monitoring all the social media platforms I've just told you about, whether it's Facebook, whether it's the city's page, whether it's Councilman Herndon's page, all of those questions will be transferred over to Zoom. So you'll know what that's about. As you hear from agency heads tonight, remember, get those questions in. I will ask as many questions as I can ask during the time between that last presenter and the next presenter, keeping in mind, we know your time is valuable, so we want to make sure that we're respectful of your time. Here is something else, because I know I'll remind you several times tonight to make sure you get those questions in, not after the presenters, but before. But if by chance you do get it in after the presenter and they have left the screen, there's also Q&A for the councilman as well as Mayor Hancock prior to the mayor taking the stage. And so that comes up at the end of the program. The last 15 or 20 minutes is just Q&A from constituents. That would be you asking these individuals, the mayor and Councilman Herndon and any other department head who is also on. So you'll hear from the chief tonight. As I said, you'll hear from Britta Fisher over housing. You will hear from Mallory, who is with Parks and Rec. So all of this, these individuals will be there, as well as I'm sure a few others who are in attendance, as they always are on these cabinets in the community. So in previous years, the CIC, as we call it for short, but it's the cabinet and community, has been in person for that particular district. But again, it's all due to the pandemic. We started out doing these virtually. The mayor wants to continue doing these virtually to give each constituent the same amount of access that they've given other constituents. So even if things were hunky-dory, we would still be in the process of making sure that you had the same amount of access as those previous and the districts to come. And with that, I also want to say that Mayor Hancock's Facebook page or Councilman Herndon's Facebook page is another place where you can continuously drop your questions. And again, as I bring them over, and I want to say this too, because we've heard this before, you can be critical. I mean, you can criticize, but it is also about respect. You want to be respectful with the criticism. And this is not an accusatory kind of environment. This is really about, hey, your question will be representing probably hundreds of folks who also have the same question in your respective district and District 8. So I want to make sure I use the time wisely to get questions answered to your, or get you answers to your particular questions. So before I introduce the mayor, following the mayor, Councilman Herndon will introduce an educational hero video, and that is going to be Alice Kelly, and it is a very special tribute. So with that, please help me welcome Mayor Michael B. Hancock to the screen. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, Glo, and good evening to all of the District 8 residents. I'm so honored once again that you are hosting us, albeit virtually, for this cabinet community meeting. And I want to thank one of my favorite people in the entire city, Councilman Chris Herndon, for his tremendous leadership, continued leadership of District 8, stewardship of the great city, and stewardship of the district that I used to call, I used to represent as part of District 11 that's now been broken up. But Councilman Herndon has just been a tremendous leader. And I think my lighting has gone out, so I apologize. I'm gonna try to create better lighting for the situation and make a quick adjustment.
That's good, because I was definitely wondering what was, and there you are.
Here I am. Sorry about that. I
Yes.
could see for myself, Glo,
Yes.
that the lighting was bad and I wanted to get it fixed. So, hey, listen, let me go ahead and get started. I want to share with you briefly, District 8, what I and my administration have been up to or will be focused on going forward. We have called this era, if you will, that we're focused on, really about lifting your heads and to drive towards a more equitable and sustainable future for all of Denverites. We're going to be focused on some key areas. Homelessness, obviously, is an area that many of us, all of us, are focused on and concerned about in our cities. We've seen it grow exponentially over the last couple of years. We're going to be focused on building and acquiring more hotels and motels to help those who are unsheltered in our city, more housing vouchers, more tiny home villages and safe outdoor spaces and safe parking spaces for those who need temporary places to land while we try to figure out more transitional and permanent housing for them. And of course, more affordable housing. That is the secret to really making an imprint and significant impact on the challenges around homelessness. This is we'll have a new specialized team that will work to prioritize the review and approval of projects around affordable housing coming through the city. The other one, of course, we are seeing not only in Denver, but across the country, an exponential increase in crime in our city. And we are working and we are committed to continue to work on fighting crime in the city. That's why the chief of police did a phenomenal job with his agency. And I believe you're going to hear from the commander of this great district, Kathy Bancroft, as well as Chief Payson, to talk about the hot spots in the areas of the city where we are seeing the majority of the crime occur in the city. We're also targeting youth violence through our Youth Violence Informed Initiative, or our Youth Violence Table that has initiated and deployed, quite frankly, some very interesting and effective techniques to engage our young people and to keep them from being involved and really encouraging our young people to look for safer, healthier activities and programming to be involved in. We're also urging our young people to be the change that they're looking for in their community. If we have young people who are 21 years and older who want to see a positive change and positive relations between our police, for example, our sheriffs and firefighters and the community, well, we are looking to hire and we are shorthanded, as Chief Payson, I'm sure we'll talk about. We would love to have their energy on the police department going forward. And then, of course, we're going to be entering a couple other techniques, including you heard about our STARS program, as well as our co-responder program. We're going to continue to expand and invest in those efforts. That is responding with less police force to some of the crises that we're seeing, particularly when they are more of a behavioral health challenge as opposed to a criminal challenge where someone might be in danger. And then the other one, of course, is the new diversion center. Our officers will bring individuals to a center in downtown Denver. Chief Payson is working on this model. And is there they will triage and assess the best way in which to serve this individual. Not a lot of people, not everyone deserves or needs to go to jail. They may need additional intervention and diversion support and services. And that's a better way or new alternative for us with regards to our policing. The next area we're going to focus on, of course, is our stimulus, economic stimulus. There's no question that the COVID pandemic has wreaked havoc on our economy. Hundreds, thousands of people in Denver were left without work. Their industries were disrupted, small businesses closed, who were otherwise thriving before the pandemic. And so we are focused on the stimulating our economy. We're grateful that the federal government and state have leaned in and have devoted a lot of resources to helping Denver begin to process, to invest in its infrastructure, as well as to help some of those businesses and unemployed sustain themselves during these turbulent times. But as you may have read, as of 3 weeks ago, I proposed to City Council, 4 weeks ago, proposed to City Council a $400 million gold bond. We call it the RISE bond to help Denver rise in this economic challenge. This is Denver's investment. We have the federal government and state, but this is Denver's way of investing in itself and meeting the federal government and state government in the efforts to help us to return to economic vibrancy. The bond package will be referred to the city voters. Matter of fact, it was this past Monday by City Council, and we're grateful to City Council for that. And we encourage everyone to take the time to read and to understand what this bond package is about. It's not only about investing in our infrastructure, but it's also about creating a long runway of economic strengthening in our community going forward. One of the elements, of course, is the arena that we have been told by experts Denver has been lacking for now over 2 decades. This is a 10,000 seater. We will build it at the National Western Center, and it will help us to meet that mid-market challenge that Denver has not been able to meet for quite some time. It will help us turn that campus from just a 3-week out of the year kind of activation to a 365-day-a-year activation, and thereby help us to recruit, attract whole new tourism opportunities, conventions, and business investments, as well as concerts that today either we can't host during the winter months or we are bringing up to the Pepsi Center that is too large for them and they have to cut off half the Pepsi Center. So we look forward to you all paying attention to that and looking at what we will come away with in terms of economic stimulus, in terms of 7,500 jobs, over $1 billion of economic impact from a $450 million investment. We also are going to create a $50 million impact fund. One of the sectors that have been greatly impacted and had been struggling even before the pandemic, but greatly impacted by the pandemic, are our women and minority businesses. And this $50 million fund, from taxes we already receive, marijuana taxes, we're taking a sliver of those taxes and say, over the next 10 years, we're going to build a $50 million fund to help entrepreneurs, women, minority entrepreneurs get started in developing their businesses and growing their businesses by helping them access capital with a non-traditional bank of resources. We believe that the more we grow our pool of small businesses, all small businesses, including women and minorities, the stronger and deeper our base, our bench becomes in terms of helping us withstand the volatility of the economy. So we will finally, as part of our economic stimulus, continue to invest many of our American recovery dollars in workforce development, which is critical for us going forward. The last thing I want to share with you, and as an example of that, is our civilian conservation camp that we have in Morrison, Colorado. Many of you may not know, but Denver is the steward and the owner of over 14,000, almost 15,000 acres of mountain park land. And one of those areas of ownership includes Red Rocks. Red Rocks was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Great Deal. We're known as one of Roosevelt's greatest programs ever, where they took primarily men at the time, who were underemployed or unemployed and needed to find ways to support their families. And they dispatched them all over the country in these camps to do conservation projects. Red Rocks was one of them. And these men stayed at a barracks in Morrison, just near Red Rocks. This camp still exists. And unfortunately, as the owners, we haven't been good stewards of it. When I toured it years ago, I said, we got to find a way to rehabilitate this camp. And so that families and groups from our churches and youth groups and the professional groups can come up here, camp out, and enjoy the outdoors while staying in these barracks. And so what we've done as part of our workforce is to bring up men and women who need to acquire skills as part of our workforce development efforts. And they're up there today, helping us to renovate this camp. And I'm excited about it because not only are we renovating this camp, but we're helping people who are underemployed or unemployed acquire skills just as they did in the 1930s and 40s as part of the Great Deal. As part of the Great Deal, the New Deal, as part of the Great Recession or Depression that occurred at that time. So I'm proud to share with you some of those announcements. These are things that we're working on and making Denver innovative. We're going to get going with this. We got some great presentations you're going to receive today. But first, I want to turn it over to a dear friend and the hardest working council member that I know, one of my favorite people in the entire city. And I'm just so proud of him. He's been the president of City Council, served 2 terms, and he's your representative. I am really my representative as well. That's the Honorable Chris Herndon. Chris, Councilman Herndon, take it over.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for having District 8 here for this cabinet in the community. And thank you to all those that are participating by watching today. I'm excited to see all the things you're going to learn today. And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about a handful of things happening in the district and 2 things that are happening citywide that I certainly hope everyone takes advantage of and participates in. First thing I'd like to talk about is happening in the district, and that is tomorrow in North Park Hill, where we are celebrating the ribbon cutting of Denver's latest public park, Fairfax Park, 2858 Fairfax, where we've worked with the community to design a park that is fitting for that community. And that ribbon cutting happens tomorrow, 4 p.m. The entire event runs from 4 to 7. We're going to have a celebration. We're going to have kids playing. And I want to welcome and encourage all those who can make it to come out and celebrate Denver's newest park tomorrow in North Park Hill. Second thing I'd like to talk about is affordability. We recognize the challenges that are happening with, one, finding affordability in our city, as well as finding ways for people to be able to age in place and generate wealth. One of those opportunities is what's known as an accessory dwelling unit, or known as an ADU, a granny flat, mother-in-law suites, have several different names. There are parts of the district where that is allowed currently right now, but there are also entire neighborhoods where it's not allowed. And one of those neighborhoods is East Colfax. So in partnership with Council District 5, we're doing what's known as a legislative rezoning, where we just begun the process to allow the entire East Colfax community to have the opportunity to build an ADU if they so choose, without having to go through the rezoning process. So that process just started. If you're interested in learning more about it, you can absolutely reach out to our office. We can share with you the information and the timing. Next month, Mayor Hancock's going to be submitting the 2022 budget to Denver City Council. And Denver City Council is going to go through the process of having budget hearings, hearing from you, the community. If you have concerns about the proposed 22 budget, you're going to have the opportunity to speak. That process will begin in earnest next month. And I want to encourage you to stay in touch with my office, get my newsletter if you're not familiar with it, and learn and follow us as we go through that budget process so you can make sure that your tax dollars are being spent as you see fit as we go through the budget process. And the last thing I would like to talk about is redistricting. We are required by charter to redistrict our districts every 10 years. I was here in 2012 when we did the last redistricting process. It's going to begin in earnest this fall and coming into the coming winter. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to denvergov.org/redistricting. The census number came out, 715,000 people that were counted within the city and county of Denver. That's going to break down to approximately 66,000 per district. And I'm going to work with my colleagues as we redesign maps, get input and feedback from you as community members as we start that process. We're required by charter to have the next redistricting maps approved early 2022. So please make sure you're aware of that process and stay tuned and keep it in touch with my office as we go through redistricting. So those are a few things happening in the district. I'm excited to be a part of this cabinet in the community. And I'm really excited now to talk about our cabinet and community video, where we're going to feature Park Hill resident and community activist Alice Kelly.
I think everybody in the neighborhood has a talent, and they use those talents. I think everybody in the neighborhood has a talent, and they use those talents in their work, but they also can use those talents in keeping their neighborhood and their community better. My name is Alice Kelly, and I live in Park Hill, and I'm a community activist. We just moved here because we loved the diversity of age, ethnicity. We had, an auto mechanic on one side, and we had a executive director on another side, and so there was a lot of diversity on this block, and we loved that. We wanted our children to experience that. I didn't quite know how to meet people. I really wanted to get active. So someone had suggested that I join the League of Women Voters of Denver. So I did. I joined the education committee. We knew that the schools were going to desegregate. The Supreme Court handed it down to Denver in December 1973. So the schools were to desegregate in fall of 74. We formed a group called People Let's Unite for Schools. We wanted peaceful school desegregation because in many cities during that time, it was not. There was some buses that were set on fire. There was also some of that here in Denver. My little committee of 5 with the League drafted this kind of explanation about school desegregation, kind of the history and where we were going with it, so that families would have an understanding of why this was happening. So that was my kind of baptism in community activism, because I was out talking to groups for almost twice a week for a long time, trying to get them to understand or help them understand kind of what the issues were and how we could peacefully school desegregate. Well, a lot of people moved, and a lot of people hunkered down, but families started to trickle back. My support group was the League of Women Voters, and that organization enabled me to do a lot of community activism.
That was wonderful. Wow. Congrats to that is absolutely terrific to see that kind of community commitment, and kudos to District 8. Well, I also want to thank the Denver, or I should say, I Am Denver City Council tribute to District 8 featuring Alice Kelly, as you just watched, as well as a thank you to Mayor Hancock with some very good and very timely and quite frankly, very important information, as well as Councilman Herndon. Now, your first official speaker tonight, presenter, they're going to be talking about the Delta variant and talking about where we are in this fight against COVID, and really going into fall and winter, the concerns are very high. So Executive Director Bob McDonald with the Denver Department of Health and Environment, actually he is over that department, and Bob is going to be followed by Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin to give you an update on District 8 as well as citywide. So with that, Bob, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Glo, and good evening, everyone. I understand that somebody is going to pull up my slides in advance, a short slide deck, getting us through the conversation here. As that's being pulled up, I will share with you that the Delta variant is the most infectious variant we've seen of the original strain of COVID-19 since we had our first case about 18 months ago. When you take a look at the epi curve on the next slide here, this is the epidemiological curve, which really demonstrates how the number of cases have gone up and down since the pandemic came to town. And you can see in the beginning of last year, we had some cases going through the summer, bouncing up and down a little bit based on community spread and the public health orders that we had in place. And then about the first week in October, as we suspected, it just took off on us. And there was a spike getting very close to the point where hospitals were compromised in the care that they could provide. Vaccines rolled out in December, and you can see moving into the spring, cases dropped, and then through this summer into June and July of this year, cases really got low. And then the Delta variant came, and now cases are going up. The concern here is that when you look at that circle at the end of this curve here, we have more cases now than we had last year at this time, with 70% of our population vaccinated. Over 70% fully vaccinated. So thank you to those of you who have completed that process. I appreciate that. That's what gets us under control. We're not going to test our way and face covering our way out of this. Those are tools that we can use to control cases while we get everybody vaccinated. Pfizer just approved, was fully approved by the FDA. So please get out and get vaccinated. We appreciate that. That's what's going to control this. Let's take a look at the next slide. You can see here's the challenge here. That's 79%. That's actually the percentage of the population who have received at least one dose. If you got one dose and it was J&J, you're good to go. If you received just one dose of Pfizer or Moderna, you really should get that done so that you're fully protected. We're slightly ahead of the state and the US, but we need to do more. 70% is not going to get us out of this pandemic. You can see that the number of vaccines, the vaccine uptake has gone down drastically in the last couple of months. Next slide, please. So why a vaccine mandate now? Because we know that, again, when you look at what happened last year at this time, that spike that took off last year, we got to get up in front of that. We know that first part of October, just about a month and a week or so away, we could see that very thing happen again. The Delta variant is many more times infectious than the original strain of COVID-19. So we need to act now. Fall and winter months, that's when respiratory viruses tend to do very well. And we also have to keep in mind, it's not just COVID-19 that hospitals will see. They'll see influenza and many other things that tend to affect us more severely in the winter months. So we need to control our cases so that healthcare does not get compromised. Next slide, please. So to try to increase our rate of vaccine uptake, the mayor just authorized an order from the Department of Public Health and Environment for city employees and those in high-risk occupations and high-risk settings to get vaccinated. That includes city employees and those listed under that category. High-risk occupations are those providing healthcare, and high-risk settings include other people that are maybe not in high-risk occupations, but they're in those settings. So a high-risk occupation might be a primary care physician. But the person who is scheduling for him or her for that position, they're not in a high-risk occupation, but they're in a high-risk setting. One of the things that all Denver residents can do to help us get there where we need to be is not just get vaccinated, but when you make an appointment to see your physician, to see your dentist, your massage therapist, your physical therapist, people who are providing acupuncture services, anything where care is provided to you as an individual, you have every right to ask if your healthcare provider of any type is vaccinated before they provide service to you, okay? That's another way you can protect yourself. You have a right to ask that, and if they're not vaccinated, reach out to us and let us know. We can follow up with them to make sure that they know that that's a requirement. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Pfizer is fully approved, but Moderna is not far behind that, and Johnson & Johnson, I anticipate, is going to be fully approved here very soon. If you feel more comfortable with Pfizer, then get that vaccine. But the others are very, very safe, and again, likely to be approved very soon. If you have any questions about the efficacy, the safety of these, I'm happy to have that discussion. Reach out to 311. They'll connect you with me and my staff, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Next slide, please. For more information, you can go here. And as I said, call 311. You can connect with us, connect with my staff. We can talk to you in more detail than we have tonight about why they're safe, how these messenger RNA vaccines work, and the research that led up to this. This is not new research. This has been research that has been underway for many, many years, long before we ever had our first COVID-19 case. So please reach out. We want to get where we need to be with a higher percentage of people vaccinated in Denver. I appreciate your time. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Glo.
Thank you so much, Bob. And if you have questions for Bob, just put them in the Q&A and we will go ahead and get those questions answered to you, or get those answers to you, if not this evening, at a later date. And you heard Bob say also call 311. So there are multiple ways to get in touch with him and his staff. Your next presenter this evening is the Denver Police Chief, Chief Payson. Chief, the screen is yours.
Hello, thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councilman Herndon, thank you very much. Council District 8 residents, we'll be brief here so I can allow the amazing commanders of Police District 2 and 5 to share what's going on in Council District 8. It's no secret that crime is up. It's up in our city, just like it is across the country. The 5 categories that are driving crime in Denver are homicide, shootings, burglaries, auto thefts, and car break-ins. And then, as you may have seen, the mayor as well as the police department announced a focus on 5 hotspots that were accounting for 26% of the homicides and 49% of the shootings. We're making some progress in many of the spots, many of the hotspots, and we've had some continued challenges in others. But we're tweaking the plan, making sure that we're addressing all of the issues in an effort to reduce the violence that we're seeing in our city. Now, what can our community do? First and foremost is get involved. An engaged community is a strong community, and a strong community is a safe community. And you being on this cabinet in the community in the first place, you being involved is how we can take those steps forward to increase safety in our city. The mayor talked about it a little bit as well. And we have some challenges with staffing. The pandemic triggered an economic crisis in our city. And based on that economic crisis, the entire city had to trim their budgets. We have a need for more officers, and we're asking for your help, not only in the police department, but the fire department, the sheriff's department, the 911 operations center. We have some safety HR positions. We have cadets that we're looking to hire, explorers that we're looking to recruit. We have a job fair that's taking place this weekend, the 28th. It's at Ball Arena, and it's from 10 to 4. We'll put this in the chat, but if someone you know is interested, if they are a good person with a big heart that cares about their community, we are looking for you to be the change that you want to see, to join the police, fire, sheriff, 911 team, the public safety team, and help us address these issues that we are facing. I'm going to hit pause right there, and it is my pleasure to introduce Commander Kathy Bancroft, who leads the Women and Men in Police District 2. And then you'll hear shortly from Commander Marcus Fontaine for Police District 5. Kathy?
Is Commander
Yeah, we don't-
Bancroft, is she there?
She's there, but we don't have sound, Glo.
Oh, okay. Well, is Marcus Fontaine, can we go on to Commander Fontaine? Is he available?
You bet. Can you hear me, Glo?
I can hear you and see you. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So Police District 5 actually encompasses a pretty large portion of Councilman Herndon's district. He has a portion of Montbello. He has, of course, Central Park, and he has Northfield. So I'll talk about those areas very briefly. The chief mentioned that we have various hotspots, violent crime hotspots that are designated in the city. One of those hotspots is in Councilman Herndon's portion of Montbello, along that Montbello corridor, just north of I-70 up to about Andrews. So it has been an issue, but I'm happy to say that a couple of months ago, we put together what we call our precision policing team. And they go out on foot and they go out on bikes in addition to cars, and they contact community members and businesses, and they also do street enforcement. And I can tell you that in the last 28 days, in the last couple of months, we've actually seen so far about a 64% reduction in overall violent crime. So that precision policing team is making a big difference. As a matter of fact, I'll give them some kudos. About a week ago, that team on patrol in that hotspot area saw a suspicious vehicle. When they went to contact the vehicle went to move away, and the officers did a traffic stop. Now, throughout their investigation, they discovered that the driver and the passenger had warrants. They had some things in the back of this truck, and throughout the investigation, they were able to confiscate several pounds of methamphetamine, several pounds of cocaine, about 30,000 pills of fentanyl. And all of these drugs amounted to a street value of over $2 million. As you can see, the officers are out there. They're making a huge difference and doing some good things. Hopefully we can keep that going, and we can see those crime reductions remain the standard in that hotspot up there. In regard to Northfield and Central Park, I'd just like to say, I'd like folks to be diligent out there. We're seeing, like the chief mentioned, a surge in auto crimes. And what we see is a lot of auto theft. We're working with our Metro Auto Theft Task Force to do some operations to try to address that. But some of the things that the citizens could help us out with is locking your cars. In addition to having your cars locked, make sure you put your garage door openers in a place where it can't be seen. We've seen an increase in incidents where people will, even though the garage door is down, people will go into an unlocked car that's in the driveway and simply use the garage door opener to open the garage, go in, burglarize a house, and then take the car and things out of the house. So if people could just do their diligence, keep things locked up, keep things safe, that would help us out. And one last thing I'd like to say for those folks in Central Park and Northfield and Montbello and East, my commanders meeting is held every odd month on the third Thursday. So on September 16th, we're going to have another commanders meeting. This is where you guys can speak to myself and my whole staff. We will give you the details and the statistics in all of the neighborhoods in my police district. And then we also do a section at the end where we can discuss anything you guys want to discuss, the whys and the whats, and you can let us know what's going on in the neighborhood and how we can help address those issues. So that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Commander Fontaine. And I believe Commander Bancroft, are you there? Okay. I think she's still having some audio challenges, but here is what I do have. I have some questions, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask those questions to Chief Pazin as well as to Commander Fontaine. This is coming from David. Chief, he says, why does an arrest usually end in quickly releasing the criminal back to the streets to just recommit the same crimes that they were arrested for? Where is the criminal accountability?
Well, David, thanks for asking the question. Again, we're working closely with our partners in the other aspects of the criminal justice system and asking these exact same questions. I know of specific individuals that Commander Fontaine's team has arrested in Council District 8, a business burglary spree where the person was ultimately responsible for 29 business burglaries over 3 separate sprees or arrest periods. We're working to address this. Our officers are out there working hard, trying to hold individuals who are committing crimes accountable for their actions. There's a backlog that takes place within the courts, and we need to work collectively as an entire criminal justice system, as a society, to try to reduce crime. And I really respect the question. We're very aware of it, and we're having these exact same conversations with the other aspects to try to free up that backlog and hold people accountable for their crimes, or get them the assistance that they need. This is an extreme case of 29 burglaries. That's unacceptable. But if it is a shoplifting or a low-level crime that we can divert and connect people to a food pantry instead, then we also support those approaches as well.
Thank you so much, Chief. One other question. Erica is asking, is the city hiring more social workers and mental health professionals to help police respond to calls?
Erica, great question. This is part of the national narrative that we're talking about. How can we free up police officers to focus on these violent crime issues, these property crime issues, and traffic safety issues that we face in our neighborhoods? And the city of Denver has led the way in many areas with regards to mental health professionals. In 2016, we started a co-responder program. We started with 4 co-responders. Since then, we've grown to 25, and we're actively hiring right now for 7 more to get 32 co-responders. So we will have 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day coverage in our city. Beyond that, right, the co-responder, as well as the STAR program, they will respond on that initial call for service. Somebody's in crisis, it's low level, then the city council, the mayor are expanding the STAR program. That would be an appropriate STAR call. There's no need for a police officer on the low level mental health crisis. Mid and higher level, a person is violent, a person is armed with a weapon, that's the co-responder call. All of those are great. In addition to the expansion of co-responders in STAR, the police department is also, through Caring for Denver, put together a case manager program, outreach case coordinators, to do the follow-up work. So if somebody's in crisis today, what are we doing about that tomorrow? What are we doing about that next week? And that's where that follow-up piece comes in. So thanks to you all. Thanks for Caring for Denver. Thanks for council and the mayor for supporting these types of approaches. Our goal is to get more appropriate response when applicable, so we can free up officers to focus on these significant challenges that we have with regards to crime and traffic safety.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chief. And thank you to Commanders Bancroft and Fontaine. Right now, we're going to pause, just a little pause, to hear from Denver Human Services to tell you more about immigrant refugee resources.
Hola, mi nombre es Victoria Aguilar con el Departamento de Servicios Humanos en Denver, con un mensaje muy importante para nuestra comunidad inmigrante en Denver. Entendemos que debido a legislación federal pasada y mala información que ha circulado, quizás usted tenga miedo de acceder nuestros servicios vitales. Queremos asegurarle que estamos aquí para ayudarle y apoyarle para que su familia esté saludable, seguro y conectado a recursos. Le animamos a que visite nuestro sitio de web donde podrá aplicar para beneficios y servicios vitales y nuestros trabajadores de caso están disponibles para ayudarle. Nosotros y nuestros aliados valoramos lo importante que es usted para nuestra comunidad.
That was excellent. Thank you so very much for that. Next up for you this evening is Britta Fisher. Britta is the Executive Director of Denver's Housing and Stability Office. Britta, the screen is yours. Go ahead.
Thanks, Glo, and good to be with you all. Thanks for engaging with the mayor and Councilman Herndon and all of us this evening. I'm really excited to talk about the work of the Department of Housing Stability, or as we call it for short HOST. And tonight I want to start right off with one of the top concerns for many of our residents here in Denver, and that is paying the rent. We know with lots of moving parts on eviction moratoriums, there's more interest and attention than ever on any of our rental assistance programs. And Mayor Hancock helped to lead the way on creating a temporary rental and utility assistance program many years ago. And we have assisted so many residents like Monica, who is here, pictured here, with a temporary disruption to their income and to help pay the rent for just a short time so that people can get back on their feet. Now with COVID-19, that has been a longer time period for many than ever before. And we are fortunate that we have new resources from the federal government to complement our local funds and to help through the state get that to our renters across Denver who are struggling to make the rent. We saw in this pandemic that demand spiked over 60% in January 2021 over December 2020. We know there are a lot of people struggling. We have helped 2,500 households in 2020, as well as 1,400 in the first 4 months of 2021. We would encourage you to let your friends, neighbors, and anyone who is having one of those life disruptions and is having trouble making their rent to please apply. You can learn more on our website at denvergov.org/housing. And there are applications to fill them out to the best of ability. And there are local nonprofits that are helping to assist people to get those complete and to get that assistance out the door as quickly as we are able. The other thing that people want to know is about housing in their district. And so here in District 8, there are a lot of affordable rental and home ownership homes here that are available. There's 21 projects and more than 1,400 affordable homes in this district. Probably a great legacy from when Mayor Hancock was Councilman Hancock, as well as from Councilman Herndon's really dedicated efforts. We really appreciate his attention to affordability here in Denver. A couple projects that we just want to draw your attention to. One is a recent one that was just opened called Central Park Urban Living, and it's 132 affordable for sale homes. So these homes are for people earning between $55,000, which at 60% to 80% AMI, so $55,000 to $71,000, and it varies based on your household size as well. So we have all that information on our website. You can check that out. It's the income limits table. And this project is at 36th Avenue and Central Park Boulevard. So it's a beautiful project. It was fun to get that open with Councilman Herndon just weeks ago. And it is a beautiful project by our partners at Northeast Denver Housing Center. Another project to draw your attention to is Moline at Stapleton. This one's at Moline and MLK Boulevard. It was opened in 2019 and has 180 units of rental homes. This ranges from 30% AMI, so very low incomes, up to 60% AMI. And so we know that 30% AMI income is about $21,000 per year for a single person household. So that just gives you a realm of understanding how affordable these units can be. The other things that are cool about this project is they also incorporate some veteran assistance as well as assistance for people with disabilities. So these are great assets in the community and want to make sure you know about them and how to refer people to them at these websites listed here. The last thing that I wanted to talk about this evening is our 5-year strategic plan. We have a draft plan that is out for community input, and you can tell us what you think. There is this plan that you can read. It's available in English and Spanish on our website. And we want to know that what we heard and what we put into the plan is the direction that you think makes sense, and that we are reflecting what you want to see here in Denver. The community input will be then incorporated, and that will be put in front of Mayor Hancock in September, as well as our strategic advisors, and then go to City Council for adoption in November. With that, I'm sure there'll be some questions, and I'm happy to take those.
Yes, there are definitely some questions, Britta. Erica is asking, if we see someone who seems to be having mental health crisis, who and what is the best resource to call?
Well, the chief actually was speaking to this type of resource before, so he's the expert on the STAR program, so I'm going to toss that to him.
Britta, thanks. And again, I think Erica, you had the question, which is great. This is another area that the city of Denver has helped lead the way, and city council fully supports. They've added some more money towards STAR expansion. Right now, we would ask that folks call the traditional 911 or the non-emergency line, be very descriptive of what's taking place, right? We talked about the low-level calls where a person is not armed, that is not violent, as well as the co-responders for folks that are displaying some level of violence or armed with a weapon. So right now, we ask that folks get a hold of dispatch. In the future, we will be able to even streamline that even further as that expansion grows. Britta, thank you.
And thank you, Chief, as well as Britta. This one is for you, Britta. This is coming from David. He said, I had the opportunity to work with a mentally ill person who was homeless and addicted to drugs. We spent months applying for places, all turned him away as they said, basically, they could not support dual diagnoses, or if they did, they felt he was too dangerous. He ended up homeless, remaining homeless. How do we support people in this situation?
Thanks for that question. And yes, all too often we see barriers for people with disabling conditions, as well as with substance misuse. And, you know, we are working at a policy level on that, but we've also had some real successes. One of those was recently in the news, and that was the Denver Social Impact Bond. And this really helped us to provide housing upfront, surround people with appropriate services, and see that with those services, people can be safely and successfully housed here in Denver. And that was done through partnership with our Mental Health Center for Denver, as well as the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And we've had tremendous success, more than 79% staying housed after multiple years. And so that's really great. And we want to do that. We know that it works. In fact, most of us in the United States who have any of those issues are successfully housed. In fact, we know that about more than 50 million of our US adults that identify a mental health concern. And there are more than 20 million that identify a substance misuse concern. And so we know that with only 1.5 million being reported as experiencing homelessness, that people can be housed and with supports address any of those issues. So we want to continue that. You're going to see more from us on supportive housing. We recently helped to fund more than 200 units downtown. We agree, David, we want to take away the barriers to housing, get folks to the help and housing that they need. And we're doing more of it every day.
Okay, thank you so much, Britta. Here is one last question. I do have some other questions in the Q&A. Tony is one, Franklin's another. I will ask those at the end when we come to Q&A, but this last one says, Britta, when will Denver enforce the camping ban?
Well, again, this probably goes to the chief, but it's enforced all the time. And how that looks is different. Again, I want to reemphasize that one of the things that we saw from the Housing Social Impact Bond was that we could avoid a lot of jail costs by putting people in housing with those appropriate supports. But the chief can speak to the direct enforcement side of this as well.
Chief Payson, if you are there, go ahead. If not, we can hold you until the end, but I know that this is, and the end is coming up pretty quickly. We've got to hear from Denver Parks and Rec and Mallory, and then it'll be opening the floor for the chief and the mayor, as well as for the councilman. So why don't we do that just for the sake of time? And with that.
Chief's right there,
Oh,
Flo.
is he there?
He was
Okay.
trying to get in.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chief.
All right, real quickly, yes, we are as a city enforcing the camping ban. However, there's many steps here, and chief among, or first step, is providing outreach to folks, trying to connect people, trying to get voluntary compliance, to get people connected to housing, to get people funneled to host.
Flo, now you are on mute.
I said, thank you so much for that, Chief, because really when residents and, when constituents call, they expect it to be done like that. And it doesn't happen that way, as you well know, Britta. There's a process that they have to go through. So all of these terrific questions, I am going to move on. And again, Britta will be here. So will the chief, the mayor, and councilmen. They will all be here towards the end of this program to take even more questions. But with that, I want to get to Denver Parks and Rec, Mallory Roybal. Good evening, Mallory.
Thanks, Glo. Good evening, and thank you for welcoming Denver Parks and Recreation to this cabinet and the community. This evening, I'm very excited to present to you a number of current and upcoming projects within the district. So one of the first projects, well, there's a variety of park projects that are taking place throughout the district. And one of the first projects that I wanted to touch on was the Fred Thomas Park irrigation system. This is not as exciting as some of our other projects, but very important indeed. It's an upgrade to the irrigation so the park remains green and usable. At Martin Luther King Jr. Park, the sidewalks and parking lot are being improved. The perimeter sidewalks are complete, and more sidewalk improvements are upcoming. The old playground area was removed and a new swing bay was added to the new playground. And finally, the park is undergoing additional landscape and irrigation improvements. The playground improvements project is underway at McNichols Park as well. The concept plan for these improvements is shown on the image on this slide. Demolition of the existing playground took place this summer, and a new sidewalk was put in place to connect to the new playground. And the anticipated completion of that playground is late this year. The construction for the playground renovation project at Central Park is anticipated to begin early next year of 2022. Next slide, please. And as Councilman Herndon already mentioned, the Fairfax Park is complete and a ribbon cutting ceremony is scheduled for tomorrow, August 26th at 4 p.m. to celebrate its opening. So please join if you can. The new park includes a playground with swings and a unique climbing structure like the one shown in this image on the slide. In addition to these play features, the park includes a small interactive water play area, shade structure and picnic tables, game tables, seating, and a grass area with some additional landscaping. Next slide, please. The Sand Creek Trail project includes designing and building a concrete and crusher fines trail on the segments of the trail which are currently unimproved. This is a 3-mile stretch of improvements that follows the alignment identified in the Sand Creek Regional Greenway Denver section of the master plan from 2016, and that's shown on this slide. I'll go through some of the indicators on the slide because I know that it's difficult to read. But when this project is complete, there will be a continuous hard surface trail which will link Aurora, Denver, and Commerce City. So it's very, very exciting for us to have this resource within our community. So looking at the map here, the green shows that trail and some of the improvements will take place along that portion. The red dotted lines and arrows include neighborhood connections to the Greenway Trail, and the blue dotted lines and arrows show that that's potential neighborhood connections to the trail. And finally, the yellow shows kind of a shared use sidewalk. Next slide, please. So as a final note, most of our recreation centers are open and registration for these activities started early this month on August 9th. Please visit our website at denvergov.org/park projects for all project information, or feel free to email us if you have any other questions. And that's all I have. Thanks,
Thank you so much, Mallory. You are welcome. There are some questions for you. This one is coming in from the Facebook side. How come green space is not being considered as an important topic when only 5% of Denver has parks?
That's a great question, and it's something we've been trying to handle through our recently adopted strategic acquisition plan, which is set to grow the parks and recreation system. This plan includes more of a focus on ensuring that all residents are within a 10-mile walk or roll to a park. So this plan will guide our department in creating an equitable, sustainable, and resilient park and recreation system. So we're excited to move forward with advancing the acquisition program to ensure Parks and Recreation expands to meet those needs.
And final question, Mallory, final questions coming from also the Facebook side saying, can we buy memberships for rec centers now?
Not quite yet. We're still doing $2 drop-in fees until all the centers are open, which all the centers will be open by September 7th, at which point we'll have some promotions for memberships in October.
Oh, and let me just squeeze this in because we definitely love our dogs. Can you tell me who I'd reach out to for getting water turned on at Stanley Dog Park? There's all these water fountains and thirsty dogs need water.
That's a great question as well. I'll take note of that myself and pass that along to the right folks so that's turned on.
Excellent. Thank you, Mallory. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the time in the program where it is the mayor and Councilman Herndon, and depending upon what the questions pertain to, department heads and agency heads who can answer specific questions that are coming in. So the first one deals with the development of the parkland south of Northfield High School. So Mallory, I'm assuming this is going to be your purview. Has the city of Denver considered building an aquatic center anywhere in the city? Please repeat the timeline for the Central Park Playground, and thank you.
Sure. So the first question was about an aquatic center at the Northfield area. We have not begun a design process for that. That requires a bit of funding that we just don't have at this time. So we have not addressed that yet. So that could be a suggestion as a part of any public process that we have in place, but that is currently not planned. And as for the Central Park anticipated construction, that will begin early next year of 2022.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that, Mallory. This one is actually probably for the mayor as well as for Bob. I know that they have been working hand in hand with trying to keep as many people safe as they can. I have had the Moderna vaccine, 2 doses. Do I need to wait until FDA approval before getting the booster, or can I proceed in getting the booster before then? My 8-month time frame is due in October.
Mayor, you want me to take that? Yeah, sure. No, you don't have to wait. You can go ahead and get that booster shot. The booster shot is not a mandate. It's not a part of the mandate, but you can go ahead and get your booster shot now. Vaccine supply and providers are very accessible at this point. If you have any challenges, reach out. We can get you connected, but you should go ahead to move forward. You don't have to wait for FDA approval to get that booster shot. Moderna and J&J are very safe, and they'll be approved soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob. And Mayor Hancock, I know that you had said this earlier. You've been saying it quite a bit, stressing the importance of keeping people safe and why this is so important. I would love to give you an opportunity to really just reiterate a lot of the things that people who work in city government hear all the time, but perhaps people on the outside do not hear as it relates to just really trying to keep everyone safe and the city open.
Well, absolutely. First and foremost, Glo, we are making decisions for the city of Denver based on data. We look at our case rates on a daily basis. We look at our hospitalization rates, as well as the availability of beds, and particularly in our ICU units. And we certainly take a look at vaccination rates. And the reality is, the moment we see a spike in cases, and we see particularly a spike in hospitalizations, you begin to see Bob McDonald and the Department of Public Health and Environment begin to make recommendations in terms of public health orders. There's nothing more important to all of us than to keep the citizens of Denver healthy and safe. And the most recent order in terms of mandatory vaccination, I want to make sure people understand this is not an order of the mayor. This is a public health order that I absolutely agree with and approve through Bob's recommendation and his team's recommendation based on the data that we were seeing and they were studying and watching in terms of infection rates or cases going up in Denver. And the fact that we were, though doing well with vaccinations, we saw case rates rising, particularly with those who were unvaccinated. And one way to move was to, one, make sure our public employees were vaccinated. And two, if you work in a high risk venue and high contact venue, that you should be vaccinated. So we make those decisions based on data. We try to make sure that we're not engaging in subjectivity or politics as part of the decision making with regards to our public health orders.
Absolutely. And a follow-up question for you, Mayor and Councilman Herndon, you may want to chime in on this. Why did Denver let go of a golden opportunity, Mayor Hancock, to purchase the Park Hill Golf Course land to preserve the open space per the conservation easement, and instead allowed and is working alongside a developer to purchase it?
Well, we're not working alongside a developer. In fact, we moved in before the developer, this particular developer, any developer moved in to buy the land. We tried to purchase the land, and the overall objective was to preserve open space. We knew that there was some interest from surrounding communities because there had been a visioning process previously to have it developed. But we were focused on, if there was going to be development, to make sure that there was open land reserved for this space. Then we were sued because the owner of the land had at least the leasee of the land had a right of first refusal on the land with the owner. And so we did back away from it. Our lease release for the lawsuit, the settlement was to back away from the effort to purchase the land and allow the owner to work with their leasee. And ultimately they did. And ultimately what happened was this owner came in with an offer that was way above what the city could have paid at the time for the land. The visioning process that is taking place today is what we should be doing in order to reaffirm the vision and hopes of the people who live in and around the neighborhood and will be mostly impacted by any development or development of open space. Even with the easement, can it continue to be used as a golf course? And if not, what should be there? But I can tell you that a priority for the city of Denver is that there is some open space, a great deal of open space left in this area. We are not working alongside the developer. I don't know where that comes from. The city of Denver, through the Department of Public Community Planning and Development, actually facilitates the visioning process as a neutral facilitator and to allow for the voices of the community to be heard. Councilman Herndon may have a comment or two to share on this issue as well.
Yes, Mayor. Just echoing what you were talking about, and for those who aren't as familiar, Clayton Early Learning was the steward of the Park Hill Golf Course, who were using the dollars from that to fund their mission of early childhood education. And they were in agreement with the city. And as the mayor just spoke, there was a lawsuit that occurred, and they sold to someone who could provide a higher cost so that they could continue that process of serving our youth, our marginalized youth, from an early childhood education perspective. So that's entirely true. And there's a visioning process that's happening now. The steering committee meetings are public for those who want to watch to see how that is moving forward, so that should anything happen to the property outside of being a golf course, the community is making those decisions. And they've had surveys done, they've knocked on doors to get feedback, and that process is moving forward. So if you just type in Park Hill Golf Course visioning process, the information will come up where you have the opportunity to stay abreast of those meetings.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Herndon. And here's another question for you. Councilman Herndon, it is coming in from the Facebook side. It says, what are you proposing for accessory dwelling units in East Colfax and why?
Certainly, and thank you for that question. As we talk about how can we create affordability within our city without having impacts to our more mature neighborhoods, accessory dwelling units are one of those great components. And so if you're not familiar with the East Colfax community, what's special about these neighborhoods is that these homes are typically on very large lots. And the majority of the households also have alleys throughout. So if you have a garage that's facing an alley, you can do what's known as an accessory dwelling unit, where you can do one, tear down that garage and just build a small, and I'll just approximately 500 to 600 square foot unit there, or you can possibly build something on top of your garage. So it does two things. One, it adds gentle density to the neighborhood because there's already a building on that alley, so it doesn't have an impact from the standpoint of additional traffic. And then two, the homeowner can possibly rent that out for wealth building. Now, the first thing people may have concerns about is, well, can an individual buy up houses in East Colfax and do that? You're only allowed through this process to do an accessory dwelling unit if you live in the residence where you're moving forward with the application. So that's one way we want to protect community so one individual doesn't come in. It allows individuals to add density. So if you're a single or a person that wants to downsize, you want to stay in your neighborhood, you can do that, as well as wealth building. People, if you've owned your home, how can you tap into your equity to possibly do some residual monthly income? That's an opportunity as well. So those are a couple of reasons. ADUs have been successful in West Colfax, along with other neighborhoods in Northwest Denver, and we want that to come to East Denver. And that's why myself and Council District 5 are moving forward with the legislative rezoning.
Good deal. This one is a question for Mayor Hancock. It says, I appreciate the vaccine mandate, but wonder why we aren't also requiring a mask mandate to help stem the tide of COVID and the variant.
I love the question. It's a great question. We get it all the time. Let me bring up Bob McDonald. I think as Bob answers this question, I'll remind everyone what I just said is that a lot of these decisions are made, all these decisions are made based on data and what we're seeing. One thing we can celebrate is the pretty phenomenal vaccination rates of the people of Denver. But that bubble can be easily pierced. And that's why we have the mandatory vaccination rate. But Bob, I'll let you talk about the masking.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the question. First of all, the fact that there's not a mandate in place doesn't mean that people can't wear face coverings if they wanted that, if they want that added protection. Those that are vaccinated are largely protected. Those that are unvaccinated or otherwise at high risk because of other health conditions should also wear a face covering. With every one of our public health orders, there can be an impact to that, a mental health toll, in many cases an economic impact. We've seen that over the pandemic. So we want to be thoughtful with the number of public health controls that we have in place. And I want to reserve some of those tools as we move into the fall when we might see a spike. Okay, because if we're wearing face coverings through the summer, we go into the fall, we got to wear them through the fall, through the winter, through the spring. There's a toll with that. And soon, you know, if we get enough people vaccinated, we can let go of those types of tools. One other thing I want to mention about the booster shots, keep in mind that if you got Pfizer, then get the Pfizer booster. If you got Moderna, then get the Moderna booster, okay? I forgot to mention that. If you can't remember which one you got, you can't find your vaccine card, we can look that up for you. Reach out to us through 311. We can take a look at that and let you know which one you had.
Excellent.
And of course, Bob, did Johnson came out today with a plan for a booster shot as well, correct?
You know, Mayor, I have been on Teams meetings all day, so
Okay.
I have to admit that I haven't been keeping up to date with recent events, but I know it's coming. So
Look
they're all
at
safe.
me bringing breaking news to Bob McDonald on vaccine.
Oh, that's funny. This one is for you, Councilman Herndon. It deals with a lot of the projects that are happening in the district that you see are positive. So much negativity is happening. And this person is saying, what good projects, things that are happening in the district that more people want to know about?
Certainly. Well, I think as we're talking about housing and affordability is certainly something that always comes to the forefront. And if you're not familiar with what's happening on East Colfax with PTs, so PTs has been, you know, a pillar of East Colfax in a negative sense for the crime that was happening, the drug dealing that was happening. So a handful of years ago, it was shut down and the city acquired it. So we took an old dance club and it was torn down probably 2 months ago. I took some photos and we celebrated that. And what's going to become of that former site? Early childhood education on the first floor, 4 floors of affordable housing. And when I talk about family housing, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms, because we know families need more bedrooms when they have multiple children. So that will be coming hopefully by the end of next year, 30 to 80%, I believe, AMI, 80 units. And that's just something that we should celebrate. Taking what was a detriment to the East Colfax community is now going to have an affordable housing with an early childhood education component. And I absolutely think that that's something that we should celebrate.
Absolutely.
That is very good and excellent news. Mayor Hancock, with that, I am going to turn it back over to you so you can wrap us up for this evening.
Larry Neal, we celebrate you once again for doing a phenomenal job in moderating us. To Councilman Herndon, my man, thank you again for your tremendous leadership and efforts. And to all of District 8, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed at least these reports as well as the opportunity to ask questions. I want to thank everyone who joined us in terms of our speakers, Mallory from Parks and Rec, Chief Pays and Commanders, excuse me, I almost call him Fontaine, excuse me, I call him Faison, Fontaine, and Bancroft, who tried to join in with us, but we couldn't hear. Britta Fisher as well, who's a consummate and constant presence on these calls. We just thank you all for joining us, and to the entire team behind the scenes, our leader, Katie Stracina, who's really our producer and director, and the entire team that helps make this happen. If you knew, there are so many folks who lean in to help make this happen. We are so grateful to you for your tremendous work. I've been asked to make a couple announcements. There was a Denver's Days event that had to be pushed out, but it's still going to happen. And we want to invite everyone to come out to the block party on Friday, August 27th. That's in just a day from now, from 5 to 8 p.m. at Walia Creamery at 1119 Syracuse Street. We want everyone to come on out, bring your kids, enjoy a great block party and enjoy some ice cream. And also, please join us for the East Colfax block party, which is going to take place. They want you to come hang out with neighbors, enjoy free food and entertainment, and learn about hidden secrets on East Colfax. Interpreters will be available. Spanish, Amharic, and Burmese will be taking place. So we just want to thank you all for being here and being a part of this cabinet in the community. These are great opportunities for us to interact and learn from one another. You all take care. We'll see you next year, hopefully in person when we do the next cabinet meeting in District 8. Thank you again, Councilman Herndon.